Hello YouTube, hello viewers, and welcome back to another episode of creating our social API using Laravel. Last session we did a little bit of pre-planning before we started with our image upload section of our project. In this session we're going to start covering how do we store those files, or files that we send through Postman, how we're going to get them stored on our local storage. So we're going to follow through a few of those. But first, before I do anything, I've noticed for those people that are watching my videos, a lot of you are not subscribed. So if you could just hit the subscribe button, preferably anytime during the video if you like these videos, obviously, then subscribe. If not, I've just noticed that there's a huge difference between people that are unsubscribed and that are subscribed. So if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be great. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So we last left off here on this section where we're just printing off just a DD command saying hi, and we did a request here so we can allocate, or we told in the request what we were allowed to upload, or the user was allowed to upload onto the project. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on some logic today to get that to actually work. But before we do that, a lot of people are asking me in messages, how do I link my folder structure up? So it's that simple. I've already done mine, but if you haven't done yours, you just need to go to your command prompt, make sure that you're inside your project location, and then you just need to run a simple command. So if we have a look at artisan, so we just do php artisan. Oops, my cap lock's on, sorry. php artisan, like so. Remember, we get a list of all artisan commands. The one that we're more interested in here is this storage link here. So all you have to do is just do php, sorry, I'm not typing, php artisan, and then you just put in the storage, and then link, like so. Now mine's going to say it's already existed because it does. I've already created the link. If you haven't done it, I suggest you do that first before we continue with the application. So basically that just links our storage location into our public folder so people can see images. Now, obviously all these images are going to be public. They're not hidden. If you don't want to show them publicly, there will be tutorials further on down the line to show you how do we hide that and only show things that we want to show individual people. But technically, if this is a social media site, they want their pictures to be seen, so you want to make sure it is public, I guess. But there are ways to hide that if you want to do that. Cool. So now that's set up, we can jump straight into our project and we can actually start doing some work. So first things first, let's have a look and see what comes back if we just use this request file. So let's just throw a die dump, and we're just going to call the file here. Right, so we're just going to see what's actually happening. So don't forget, this is coming back from our Postman, and let's see what we get back from here. So if we go into Postman and hit send, you'll notice we get like a lot of information about the file. For example, is this a test file, the MIME type, any errors that we get, and there's an original name. Some of these things are important to us, but mainly the thing that's important to us the most is the name of the file, because we want to make sure we save it correctly. We don't want to just give it some random name like this, because if we just had to save it directly into our system, it would just call the file name this, which is fine if you want to keep it like that, but we could also just take this name here, which in most cases is probably the best way to do it, I find. Again, this is all about personal preference, and I would prefer to have names, I guess. You can call it jumbled, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, in Laravel, saving files is dead simple, right? All we need to do is create a variable. In this case, I'm going to call it file. And then we do the same thing. So request file, like that. Okay, so because we know this is a file that's coming in, we can use some Laravel voodoo magic to save these files. And it's very simple. We do an arrow of file, and we're going to call this thing called store as. Okay, so that's basically saying we're going to store this file on our storage system as something. Okay, and remember we did a kind of naming convention of how we wanted to save these files. And how we want to save it is our public file, or sorry, public folder we want to save it into. And we want to then make sure it goes into images. Remember we looked at this yesterday. So we wanted to go into images and /. And remember, we wanted to attach the user ID, so we made another folder for that user. So we can concatenate the string. So we're going to join the string and we can get the user ID through this auth method, like so. Because we know they have a token that's logged in, Laravel can call the auth method against the user that's currently logged in with the auth token, and we can then get the user ID from that. Pretty cool, huh? So technically our folder structure is going to look like public images / and then the auth user ID. Okay? And then the last thing we need to do is, you notice I put a comma, is we need to give it a file name. Okay? And remember, when we just did that example in Postman, we want to get this original name here. And to do that, we just do request file, right? Because that's what we're sending in. And then all we have to do is get client original name. Okay? And where does that come from? Well, if we go back into Postman, we can say that it's called original name, and Laravel already knows that we want to use something to get this name. So it is a pre-built function for that, which is get client original name. Okay, so let's close that off. And let's see what happens if we do dd and file. So let's see what happens. So save, go into Postman. You can see that I have my random image here and hit send. Perfect. So we can see what we're getting back here. Is it saying, this is my root. So public images 11 random-png.png. So that's the name of the file that we can see here. And this is the location it's saving to. Let's have a look in the code base. Where's that actually going? So let's minimize these. And let's have a look in the public directory. Now you'll notice we have this linkage here of storage. I made the mistake yesterday by making this image directory. I do apologize for that. We didn't really need to do that because we're setting it in the name variable here. But if we go into storage, we'll notice there's a folder called images, and we'll notice there's a folder called 11 because that's the user ID of the user, and we now have the name of the file, which is now the random-png.png. So how do we see this image? Well, we know that our URL is something like this, right? So we have Laravel test /. Okay, so if we go into our browser, let's paste that in. This will just redirect to our Laravel page. Okay, but to access it, we need to go to storage because that's the main location of where all our storage stuff is. So we can see storage. Then we need to go to 11 storage. Have I made a mistake here? Storage images 11, and you'll notice everything's still forbidden, and then it's called random-png.png. Oh no, I've just made a mistake. Actually, no, we're just going to copy path, and we're just going to paste it into here, for example, and I'm just going to copy this bit, just a bit, typing it over and over again. So after the 11 images 11, I'm making so many mistakes here. Images 11 random-png.png. Enter. And there we go. So we can see that we have the public image. My apologies. I don't really do it that way, and I'll show you exactly what we're going to do in a second to make the URL a little bit more friendly for us. So we now know that this is the image that we've saved, and it is local to our machine, which is great. Let's upload a different one. So let's get rid of this one, and we're going to upload this download here. So open and hit send. Notice we get another URL here, and if we go into our project, we can see that it should now be added into here, where it should be. Not too sure why I can't see it. I'll be saved into there, but we can check if we go into our browser. Lost all my code base. So we go into the browser. Remember, this is now called download.jpg. So let's see if we have it in here. So we just replace this and paste. Oh, there. That's why it won't work. And there we go. So we can see that that's the image that we also uploaded. So all the files are uploading how we want it to work. But we did add in a nice little feature into our system where we wanted to save the information about our picture. Okay? So remember this, because this is tutorial based and I want to make sure it's nice and quick, I'm just going to throw it in. What I would strongly suggest that you do is you make a service for this. So remember we have services here. So you call it an image upload service, for example. Actually, let's do it again because a lot of people are asking how do I do it. So let's do it. So refactor, I'm going to copy this name and I'm going to call this image upload service. Image upload, it's already called service. Upload service. I take everything out because we don't need all this for now. So we'll take that out. We'll just rename this to image upload service. And now you notice that we need these contracts. So we need to do the same thing with that. So in our repositories, we've got contracts and repositories. We want to make sure that we have those inside our system. So let's copy this one. Back the copy file. And we want to make sure it's called image upload repository. Upload repository. We can take all of this out because we don't need it. So it's just a blank class. Okay. And then we obviously need to make a contract. So we'll just grab the name of this and we'll make a contract. Copy file. So you can see it's pretty much duplicating file names and just editing them. That's all it is. It's not that difficult. Once you get your head around it, it's dead simple. So image repository contract. Okay. So don't forget, contracts solidify what we're doing within inside our repository, because we don't want to just throw in random database queries inside the application. Okay, so now we've got the service. We know that we've got a repository. We need to make sure that implements our contract. So our image repository contract. Okay. And we also want to make sure that our image upload service now can speak to that contract. So image upload repository, image upload repository contract. And we'll just change the name of it like so. Just add those in. Again, I'm doing this dead fast because we've done this over and over again. So again, if you do get a little bit confused, look at my previous videos on repository. I think I'm not sure what number it is, but I have done a whole session on this whole repository system. And then obviously we just need to change these names just because it makes it easier, a little bit more nicer to read. Okay, so now we have our service. It's looking at our contract. And the last thing we need to do is we need to make sure our provider is in there. So repository service provider, and we're going to add in what we've just done. So image upload contract. I'm going to have image upload repository. Dead simple. And that's it. So now we're inside our controller. Remember we added, we didn't actually add everything into the controller. I've done that on something else. But inside the controller, we can add a construct into here. And we want to make sure that it can look at our image upload service. $image upload service. And then we say this. Copy this. Again, I've covered this over and over again, so you can quite easily just look at previous tutorials. But all we're doing is just instantiating that against our service. Okay. And then all we need to do after that is we just need to make sure that it's protected and against the variable name. Cool. So that's pretty much set up. And this is what you should have been doing for those homework sessions that I've been setting you, is to just make sure we add these services, and then you can make sure they're going to the right locations. Okay, so now we've got this all set up. We can now do our database logic. We could have actually added this into the service if we wanted to, which you could do separately if you want. So this could be, I don't know, image upload service save file, and then it would be in there. But obviously we're going to be doing a bit of database logic here, so we want to make sure that we're doing the correct things. So we're going to do this, and we're using image upload service, and we're going to get a save, so save upload. Okay, so save upload. You could call it whatever. Remember, I'm just doing these on the fly. And we're going to make sure that we take the file name. Okay, so I think that's all we're going to need for the save upload. We'll find out once we get there anyways, a bit of trial and error, I guess. Let's go into our upload service. And obviously we need to make a function for this. So public function paste that in. We just made the function name and we accepting the name file. Remember that file looks like this, right? So it's just a string here. That's all it is. That's all we're getting back. Okay. And now what we need to do is we need to talk to our contract. And we're just going to give the same name and pass in the same parameter. We're not really doing any logic here, which is the nice thing because it's nice straight flow logic. We don't really need to do any business logic here. I mean, you could, I guess, but in this instance, we know. And then all we need to do is we need to just instantiate this inside our contract, which is dead easy. Public function. We can add some com block there. And now all we have to do is add it into our repository. So this is where the database stuff comes into play. Okay. And obviously we need to give it a name. So we know that it needs to be the same as what it is inside the contract. And now we just need to do our logic of saving the information to the database. So we're just going to do a try catch. Obviously for development, this is nice and easy for us because we'll know if there's an issue with anything that we're doing with inside the database. Exception error. So if something does happen, we'll know exactly what's happening. So we can just do DD. In this case, you wouldn't really do this in a real life project, but just for debugging, it's a little bit easier for us. Normally you'd use logs if you want to do that instead. Okay. And now we need to do our database logic. Now remember, inside our database, we've got a few fields. ID, file name, user ID, created and updated app. Okay, so we know that we've got two main fields, which is file name and user ID, and it's dead easy to add this into our database. So we can just say return. Actually, no, we don't want to do that because we're doing something new. So new entry, we'll just call it new entry. Again, you can call this whatever you like. And this is going to be a new user file. Okay, because remember that's the model that we created in the last episode. I'm just going to duplicate this just for ease of use. And we know that the table or the column name is file name and user ID. So we're going to do file underscore name is equal to $file. Okay. And the user ID, so it's user underscore ID. So user underscore ID is going to be our auth user ID. Okay, so we don't forget we can use this wherever we like because obviously we still inside the pretty much the token holds that information about our user, so it's dead easy to use. And then we do $new entry. Save. Okay, and then we can just return true, I guess. That works because we don't really want to return the whole object back. Okay, so now we've got the flow. So we've got the save upload. It comes into our service. Our service needs to return something back. So just make sure we say return because it's coming back as true. Read correctly. So it comes back as true if it's successful. We could have set false on the exception error if we wanted to. And then on the save upload, we can see that it's doing this here. Okay. So let's see what happens if we upload the file now. So let's hit send. And we can see we get the DD. So that's great because in our code base, if you have a look, our DD's after this. So we know something has been successful, which is great. So let's have a look at our database. Let's hit refresh. And we can see we get this nice little public image 11 download.jpg, which is our name, right? But let's say we want to make this a little bit more easier for our front end guys. Okay, because don't forget, this is an API. We're just sending information. Then they'd have to then recreate the logic of the whole URL string. And you'll notice between the URL string and this string, we're missing something, which was the important piece. If we go back to here, it's missing this thing called storage. Okay, and I want to show you a little bit of difference here with some logic that we're going to do. So before we save the file, I want to show you a little bit of voodoo magic that Laravel has. You could call this thing called URL. Okay, so we have, actually, let's not store the project just yet. Let's move it above. Okay, so you can call this thing URL. And if I just happen to hit send now on here on Postman, you'll notice that it gives us nothing of use pretty much, but by default, it'll normally give us the information of the URL of the object. Okay, so that will be the URL of our project. However, let's try with something extra. This storage, right? So storage URL, open, close. Let's see what happens if we hit send on that. I think my postman died. Just because it's such a huge object, Postman doesn't really like that when there's so much going on. Open. Same thing again, image upload, and we just make sure there's an image. There is, and hit send. Okay, so now we know that it's shouting at us because we're not passing anything of a parameter into there. So if we had to pass, let's say, I don't know, Bob in there, and hit send, and preview, we'll notice that it gives us the URL string of our project, storage, and Bob. Okay, so now we're basically saying to our front end guys, this is going to be the URL we're going to use with storage, and then it's going to be the location of our project. So how do we add that in? Well, dead simple. We know that we can use this URL storage URL, and then we just need to pass in a path, right? So let's just copy this. Let's take that out. And then inside our save upload, go straight into our repository. And here we have this new entry of our file name. Let's add it into here. Let's add it into this section here. So all I'm doing is URL, storage URL, and then the file name. So this is saying whatever that URL is, and then we're going to attach whatever that file name is that we had. Okay. And let's try and hit save now. So let's hit send. And we can see it's saved, which is perfect. So let's have a look inside our database. Hit refresh, and we can see we get a full URL string for the end user. Okay, so also we need to make sure that this doesn't happen of duplicating, but for now we're not really too bothered about that, but it is updating. We could change it to be like update and create. There is some logic for that, and we might add that into the next episode because this one's getting a little bit long. So let's actually just copy this URL, right? And let's go into our web browser and let's just paste in. So this is what will happen if you're a front-end guy, right? And you just want that, you get a data set back and you're like, okay, where do I need to go for this image? Well, there we go. We've got the image directly there for it to happen. And that's it. And then all we have to do really on the controller, instead of just returning this here, we could return, we're just going to return an empty array. What we have been doing in previous videos is returning these responses. So we can actually copy that, paste it in. We need to make sure we include our response helper here. $response helper. Delete that, paste. You can see how many times I've done this. It's becoming second nature now. Here we go. So we can pass a successful response saying true, image uploaded, and obviously it's going to be null here because we're not actually passing anything in. Send again, we get a nice response back saying the image has been uploaded with the data. Actually, we could have passed the name of the file, I guess, if we wanted to. You could pass whatever you like. If we look at our database, we can see it is there now. And yeah, that's how we do it. In the next episode, what we're going to look at is when we get the user. So when we want to get the user's information, we want to attach the relationship of the image onto the actual user. So we'll be able to get all the images that they upload, and that will be in the next one. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up. If you really liked it, make sure you subscribe. And if you really liked it, just share this with absolutely everybody. That would be great. All right, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.